As we saw when we looked at Python, the strength of the visualization tools that we looked at, Tableau, Power BI and Qlik, was that they processed the data as well by aggregating the data whenever we created a visualization. For example, in the car sales example, you could simply specify dimensions such as country or make and the measures you wanted to map such as sales price. And the data visualization would group the data by the dimension and aggregate the measure for you, for example by calculating the sum or if you preferred the average. We also saw that this was less straightforward in Python, since the programmer first had to aggregate the data themselves, for example through a call to the group by function. Doing this in ggplot in R is simpler. So again, we're going to start with the simplified version of the car sales data, and you see we only have make, country name, sale price, labor cost and color. So again, we need to start by activating the various libraries, reading in the Excel file into a table and then turning that table into a data frame. Okay, so we now have that data frame and then we can call ggplot over that data frame, and what we're going to say is create a bar chart on X, on dimension X. So let's see what that results in. So we do indeed get a bar chart. The X is the different makes, and then it maps something on the columns. And what it so let's look at the documentation on geom bar to see how all this works. So the two types of bar charts, geom bar, and geom bar makes the height of the bar proportional to the number in cases in each group. Okay, so geom bar uses stat count by default. So in other words, when you call the geom bar function, then the stat, which is what determines what you're going to see on the charts, on the bars, is by default count in a bar chart when you create when you call it with geom bar. Now we can change that by saying that the stat is going to be summary bin so let me get that right. Summary bin. I'll fix it in a minute so that at least so the stat now, rather than count, is going to be summary bin, and the function that we're going to use equals mean. Now, since we're going to do something to the bins, we also have to obviously specify what is going to be in those bins, and we're going to make that sales price. Okay, so what we now do is, rather than simply count the number in each bin, each make bin, we're now going to say, well, let's change that to a summary of that bin, and the function we're going to use is mean, and the x value we're going to look at is sales price. So let's run this. And it's called sale price, so let me get that right. Run it. And now what we see, you indeed get the average of the sales price rather than the number of sales in each of these bins. We could now tidy this up again by adding a label. Title, and maybe we'll add a label on the y-axis as well. fix this too. And then we'll run this. And see, it looks a little better. Now, in this case, we used mean as the aggregation method for the bins, but we could use sum if we wanted. Sum or min. See, or max and whatever. The point is that if you call geom bar, it will aggregate the data for you based on the x-axis. Normally it will just count the number in each of the bins in the value that you specified in the x-axis, but you can change that by making the stat a summary bin. Then you have to specify the function as well. And since you're now going to summarize something along the y-axis, you also have to say what you're going to summarize along the y-axis. I think this is a little simpler than the way in which you have to do this in Python.